Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be the art of re-attracting your woman. Well, I've got an email here from a viewer, and I think this is probably the second email that I'm going to be answering from him. He wrote me, I don't know, a month or two ago about his marriage of 23 years, and he was trying to re-attract his wife. So he's obviously made some progress since then, but there's still some things that he's struggling with, so we're going to go through this email. And on the actual article on my website, I'll put a link back to the original video that I did for him a month or two ago, so you can kind of see the progress that he's been making. But before we get into it, I got a quote I'm going to share with you. And it says, "The purpose of all relationships is that you go there to give. Two people come together to share their completeness, not complete each other. When you feel inadequate, unloved, or that your lover is slipping away, the worst thing that you can do is pursue them in order to validate yourself and that they still love you. This very act is needy, insecure behavior that will make you appear as if you feel like you don't deserve them. We all want to be loved without attachments or a loss of our freedom, but not to be loved by someone who feels like they need us in order to feel good about themselves. We want an equal, a teammate, not an energy vampire that drains us or makes us feel like we can't be ourselves or that we will lose our freedom by being with them." So let's go ahead and jump right into his email. He says, "Hey Corey, you are very fast at putting up videos and I thank you." He says, "I also read your book 2 times and I'm on the 3rd time and I'm employing all of your knowledge as best I can." Well, that's the best you can do. The idea is just to try to get a little bit better each day. It's a process, and there is a process that you're going to have to take until you get to that place where you own this material and you don't feel neediness, you're not pursuing too much, you're not backing off too much. You hit kind of the middle of the road sweet spot. And if you're doing everything right, a guy should never be doing more than 20 to 30% of the calling, texting, and pursuing. When a guy does that, it's too much pursuing and it causes the woman, her attraction level, to drop, and that will prevent her from falling in love. So the more you text, the further you're going to delay her falling for you again. He says, "Since 3 weeks ago, me and my wife have been doing better, but last week we spent 3 nights in a row back home." He says, "I'm still moved out and I got the feeling it's too much for her. Kind of 2 steps forward and 1 step back." Well, that's great. You weren't really spending hardly any time together, and I think there was another dude in the picture, if I remember right. He says, "And she did talk about needing space and room, so I'm backing off. I only speak to her when she calls or texts, and when she texts, I can't help but still telling or saying to her, I want more." You got to cut that shit out, dude. You just got to be grateful and appreciative that when she reaches out, you got to think of it as like putting a cake in the oven. It's going to take a certain amount of time for the dough to rise, but if you keep opening the door every couple of minutes, it lets the hot air out and you end up ruining the cake. In essence, you ruin the sexual attraction. I had a girlfriend, one of the ones I wrote about in my book years ago, and her mother, by the way, both took me aside and in essence told me that you've got to let her come to you. And my girlfriend said, "Let me come to you. Don't try to force things." And so that's what's going on here, is you're still trying to force things because you're fearful that you're going to lose her. And what you fear, you attract. And so when you take actions based upon fear, you're going to get the exact opposite result, which is actually making what you fear a reality. You're going to cause it to manifest in your life. He says after he told her he wanted more, she gets defensive. The reason she's getting defensive is because she feels like she's going to lose her freedom instead of her coming to you, because it's got to be her idea. And if you're trying to force her to you can't force a woman to fall in love with you. Women are not light switches. I mean, obviously us guys, we're visual. When we see a girl, we know whether or not we want that particular woman. And women, on the other hand, there's an old saying, it's been around for a long time. Men fall in love through their eyes and women through their ears. You just cannot shortcut the process of letting that attraction and sexual tension build on her part. You got to give her space and time. Like I said, it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And when you try to force something, it's a turnoff to her. Because in essence, what's going on is you're acting like a woman. And women want a guy to be more of a man than they are. He says, instead of me being happy for her being with me and still kissing me from time to time, and even some hot and heavy action in the bedroom, I'm trying to gauge when I'm overdoing it. Because I think she's ready for more. That's the problem. You're making assumptions. It's always best to ask good quality questions like, what do you mean? What do you think? Let her explain these things to you instead of you making assumptions and then taking action upon those assumptions, because you're obviously finding out by now that your assumptions are most often wrong, and the reason they're wrong is because you're coming from a place of fear. You fear losing this woman, and it's clouding your judgment, and it's inhibiting your ability to act like a masculine alpha male is supposed to act. He says, but she's not, and she goes backward for a bit like a breather. It's like, yeah, I wrote about this in my book. It's like sometimes I would back off just enough, and then when things would start going well, I'd start trying to force it again, and then she would back off, and I would set myself back a week or two, and it just sucks when that happens, because you get all excited, like, wow, it's really starting to happen again, and then all of a sudden she starts to go cold on you. In reality, she's just responding to how, in essence, you're perceiving yourself in the relationship. He says, she has told me that she loves me and is very sexually attracted to me. Well, that's definitely a good thing. He says, but last night we were making out and touching. He says it was not love, it was just a moment. I can't figure if she was being honest or just protecting herself from being too open or vulnerable. Judge women by what they're doing in the present moment. It doesn't matter what they did yesterday or last week or 20 minutes ago. The only thing that matters is what they're doing right now. And the more you can stay in the present moment and not react but respond to how she's behaving in the present moment, the easier it's going to be for you to do the right things in the present moment. Because you're getting all wrapped up in your head about what may or may not happen in the future, and you're looking at what's happened in the past, even if it was just yesterday, and you're not looking at what's going on right now. Women are emotional beings. And just like Mother Nature, you know, especially like living in Florida, there's an old saying that if you don't like the weather in Florida, just wait 10 minutes. I mean, things change that quickly with the weather in Florida, and women are emotional beings, and sometimes they're affected the same way. Can't take it personally. Because the idea is that you've got to be who you are. You've got to stand in your masculine center, and no matter what your woman is doing, it shouldn't cause you to totally come completely unglued. He says, like if we were just horny or something, so I kept the pace, and also the other guy in another state, because I guess there was another guy in the picture she was talking to or something like that. So he says the other guy, and listen to what the other guy's doing, and you're going to see firsthand how he's now starting to turn her off, which is great because it's just going to drive her back into your arms as long as you're not over pursuing her. He said, so this other guy in the other state has been hearing less from her by phone or text, and he's now pursuing a lot. He puts in capital letters. He says, but I don't know, it still makes me upset that she does still give him a small window last week. He says it was great that we got along very well. Here's the deal. I mean, it's like she had kicked you out, dude, and in her mind, your relationship was over, and she was talking about divorce. Now you're hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. She's spending more time with you. You're actually staying the night over at her house again, and this other guy that was potentially back of this emotional relationship that she was developing with this guy, it's now she's putting less energy into that and more energy into you. You got to look objectively at the actions, and she's moving in the right direction. You know, it's kind of like, you know, I may have shared this story one time. One of my spiritual teachers once said, he says, it's like, and he was talking about enlightenment. He says it's like the train for enlightenment. It says once it leaves the station, you running around inside the train is not going to cause it to get to the destination any faster, so you might as well sit down, relax, and enjoy the ride. I mean, think about it. Do you ever see James Bond sweating in the movies? Does he ever look fearful or worried that he's not going to get the girl? Especially when she protests and says, there's no way you're getting in my pants, basically. He always has that boyish smirk like, yeah, whatever, you're going to be naked in my bed later. And that's what always happens. He says, but I have to figure out when to back off and let her be to soak this in. Let her come to you. When she reaches out to you, make the next date to get together and then get off the phone. It's really simple. He says, she did tell me that she was pissed at me for just now getting it. And he puts in big letters, at being the husband she needed and wanted back then. That's great. That's a good compliment. She's basically saying, I like what you're doing, but it really fucking pisses me off that it took you so long to figure this out. Why? Because she was telling you all along what to do, but you were ignoring her and you weren't listening to her. So it's great. You're making the adjustments that you need to make. He says, but she hasn't filed for divorce, nor has she uttered the words divorce. She waited in her math of many years, and now I wonder, like she said, and he puts in big letters, if I waited for you for 20 some odd years, you can wait for me. Again, she's saying, be patient. Let me come to you at my own pace. Stop acting like a needy, insecure jackass. And of course she's going to be a little pissed off at you because it hurt her. Because in essence, you weren't being a man in the relationship. It was causing her to have to be more of the man in the relationship. And you just can't let that shit bother you, man. He says, I hope she's not going to do that one. He says, I don't think I can make it. Well, that's a nice positive outlook. I mean, James Bond always, think from the end. Of course I'm going to get her back. You guys been together 23 fucking years. And this other dude that she was talking to, obviously she hasn't known him for very long. She has a lot more time with you, and you have a deeper bond with her emotionally. So all you have to do is not fuck it up, not chase her out of your life. He says, I guess my question is, how can I gauge when to back off without her telling me? What's happening is that she starts to show some interest and she starts to pursue you, and you're like, great, and then you go right back to your old ways of over-pursuing, over-calling, over-texting, and it turns her right off again. The idea is to let her come to you. You should never do more than 20 to 30% of the calling, texting, and pursuing. And at this point, when she reaches out to you, you make the next date, and then you get together, you hang out, you have fun, and you hook up. It's going to take, under normal circumstances, when you meet a girl from the get-go, it takes about 2 months, about week 7. If you do everything right, like I talk about in my book, that's when she starts to really fall for you and want to be exclusive. So this is not something that's going to happen in a few days or even a few weeks or even a month. This is several months, but you're setting yourself back every time you start to over-pursue because it drops her level of attraction right in the opposite direction when you do that. He says, I know you said maybe 1 to 2 times a week to see each other, but we've been together for 23 years. Again, it doesn't fucking matter. All the time that you had with her doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you do right now. So he says, where's the math on this one? Let it go. Forget about it. Just respond to how she's showing up. When she reaches out to you, make a date to hang out, have fun, and hook up. And if you keep doing that, I mean, you should see enough evidence in your relationship already from the 2 months or 3 months that you've been following what I teach to see her attitude is gone from get the fuck out of my life, I want a divorce, to she's spending more time with you, she's hooking up with you, she's sleeping with you, you're staying the night over there. You're going to get there. So relax, dude. It's in the fucking bag. You're doing great. Just keep doing what you're doing, but stop over pursuing. Let her come to you, make a date to hang out, have fun, and hook up. And if you'd like to get my help, probably the quickest, I would definitely recommend for you to book a phone session with me. Isn't 23-year marriage, isn't it worth it, dude? I mean, come on. Aren't you worth to invest just 1 hour, book 1 session with me, and I can really help you tweak things? Something to think about. You can do it by going to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for booking a paid phone session with yours truly. And I will talk to you soon.